What if everything you believe about life, success, love, fear, even yourself, isn't true? Not because someone lied to you on purpose, but because the entire structure of society was built on illusion. That's the question Jiddu Krishnamurti asked. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned. Your name, your nationality, your religion, your ambitions, your fears, all given to you. You didn't choose them. You inherited them. And Krishnamurti says, that's the problem. We're all running on a script we didn't write. Society tells you what success looks like. Get good grades, go to college, get a good job, buy a house, raise a family, retire, and die peacefully. But have you ever stopped and asked, is that what I truly want? Or is that what I was trained to want? Krishnamurti challenges everything. He says freedom is not the freedom to choose between two options within a system. Real freedom is to be free from the system itself, free from fear, free from authority, free from tradition, free from the inner voice that judges you based on standards you never agreed to. He once said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Think about that. We reward conformity. We punish originality. We call people weird when they don't fit the mold. But what if the mold is broken? What if the mold was never healthy to begin with? When you were a child, you were told what is good and what is bad. You were told to believe in competition, to fear failure, to chase success. But what is success really? Krishnamurti believed that success built on fear is just another form of slavery. Here's the hard part: unlearning. It's not easy to admit that your beliefs might not be your own, that the way you see the world could be the result of decades of conditioning. But until you see that, you're not truly thinking for yourself. You're just repeating. Krishnamurti didn't offer a system, a method, or a step-by-step guide. That's what makes his teaching so different. He said truth is a pathless land. The moment someone tells you how to live, you stop being truly free. So the answer isn't in some spiritual formula or five-step life hack. It's in awareness. Deep, honest awareness of your thoughts and actions. He believed that real change only happens when you observe yourself without judgment. Not trying to fix or improve yourself, but simply watching. Watching how you react, how you speak, how you think, and then asking, why? Why do I feel anxious when I fail? Why do I want approval? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I need to feel important? These questions don't have simple answers, but Krishnamurti says the act of questioning, not the answer, is what transforms you. Because in questioning, you become conscious, and when you're conscious, you begin to break free. It's like waking up in a dream. Suddenly everything looks different. You're no longer caught in the roles and expectations. You begin to live, not as a label or a product of the past, but as a human being, present, aware, alive. And that's terrifying for society, because a person who is awake cannot be controlled. That's why society doesn't encourage deep questioning. It encourages obedience. It rewards those who follow the rules, not those who ask why the rules exist in the first place. Krishnamurti said that true intelligence is the ability to observe without judgment, not to accept blindly, not to rebel blindly, but to see clearly. Let's take fear, for example. Most of us are driven by it. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough. But where do those fears come from? Krishnamurti would say, they come from thought. Not the event itself, but the way we interpret it. The story we attach to it. You lose your job, and suddenly your mind spins. I'm a failure. No one will respect me. I'll never succeed. But losing the job is just a fact. Everything else is the story you add to it. So here's a radical idea. Maybe you're not your thoughts. Maybe you're the awareness behind them. Krishnamurti didn't want you to replace bad thoughts with positive ones. He wanted you to see thought for what it is, a tool, not your identity. And when you stop identifying with thought, something strange happens. Silence, space, a gap between the stimulus and your reaction. And in that gap, there's freedom. You no longer react out of habit. You respond out of understanding. That's the beginning of intelligence. Not the accumulation of knowledge, but the capacity to observe without distortion. But don't confuse this with detachment or indifference. Krishnamurti wasn't telling you to escape the world. He was telling you to wake up within it, to live fully, with clarity, with compassion, not from ideology or belief, but from direct perception. He believed that love, real love, can only exist where there's freedom, not possession, not dependence, not need, love without fear, love without control. That kind of love is rare, because most relationships are built on image, what we think the other person should be. But as Krishnamurti said, the moment you create an image of someone, you stop truly seeing them. Now imagine this kind of awareness in everyday life. You walk into your job, and instead of just playing your role, you observe it. You see the dynamics, the masks people wear, the ambition, the stress, and you don't judge it. You simply see. You come home, and instead of drowning in distraction or routine, you become still. You notice your thoughts, your body, your emotions. You don't try to change anything. You watch, and slowly, something begins to shift. Not because you're trying to change, but because awareness itself is change. When the light is turned on, the darkness disappears on its own. That's the power of what Krishnamurti called choiceless awareness. No resistance, no effort to escape, just seeing. And from that seeing, insight is born. Not borrowed knowledge, but real inner clarity. So, what if everything you've been taught is a lie? Not in some conspiracy theory way, but in the deeper sense. The lie that you are separate, that you must fight to be someone, that you must chase happiness, that you are not enough. These are the silent lies we all live with. And Krishnamurti says, the moment you see the lie, really see it, it loses its power over you. You don't need a guru, you don't need a method, you don't need a belief system. You need to look, not out there, but inward. Because the truth is not hidden, it's just buried beneath layers of noise. And once you begin to peel away those layers, you'll discover something surprising. You've been free all along. So what happens after you begin to see through the illusion? At first, it's unsettling. Everything you once believed starts to lose its grip. The people you looked up to, the dreams you chased, the fears you obeyed, they begin to look like shadows. And that can be scary, because when the old structure falls apart, there's a void, a silence. But Krishnamurti said that in that silence, something new is born, something real. Not built on ambition or tradition or memory, but on direct experience. You begin to live, not based on who you're supposed to be, but on who you are, moment by moment. This doesn't mean you quit your job or run away from society. It doesn't mean you reject your family or burn your books. It means you live with your eyes open. You question gently. You observe deeply. And you stop running on autopilot. You start asking better questions. Not, how can I be successful? But, what does success actually mean to me? Not, how do I fix myself? But, who told me I was broken in the first place? You realize that your worth isn't tied to achievement, that your identity isn't trapped in a label, that love doesn't mean control, that freedom isn't found in escaping life, but in meeting life, fully awake. Krishnamurti didn't want followers. He wasn't selling a movement or a system. He simply wanted people to see, to look at themselves and the world without distortion, without fear, without the noise of belief and tradition clouding the view. He once said, the ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. That kind of intelligence isn't taught in school. It's not memorized. It's uncovered. It's already inside you, buried under years of conditioning. And here's the beauty of it. Once you begin to live with that kind of awareness, everything changes. Not because you try to change it, but because you see it clearly. You become more patient, more curious, less reactive. You start to see people, not as categories or roles, but as living, breathing human beings with their own pain, their own story. You stop rushing through life. You listen more. You resist less. You begin to trust your own perception, not what others tell you to see. You might still feel fear, but you no longer become fear. You might still experience sadness, but you don't run from it. You sit with it. You watch. And through that watching, the emotion passes, like a cloud drifting through a vast sky. Krishnamurti taught that transformation is not in the future. It's not something you work toward. It happens in the now, in the very moment you become aware of what's real. So if everything you've been taught is a lie, or at least a deeply flawed version of truth, then the invitation is simple. Wake up. Not to fight the world, not to fix it, but to understand it. And in that understanding, you might just find a peace that no belief can give you. Not the peace of escape, but the peace of clarity. And that kind of peace is freedom.